Merci d'accueillir sur scène l'artiste et fondatrice du studio 617, Sougwen Chung.
Bonjour. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Sougwen, and I'm an artist and researcher working in human and machine collaboration. So most of us here use technology in our day-to-day, and some of us rely on technology to do our jobs. And technology has shaped so many different aspects of my life in particular. And for a while, I thought of machines and the technologies that drive them as perfect neutral tools that could make my work more efficient and more productive. But to quote Neil Postman, a sociologist and writer on technology, technology is not good or bad, nor is it neutral. And to quote Celeste Kidd, there's no such thing as a neutral platform. We've seen industries increasingly automate human work with machines, and it led me to wonder, if machines are starting to be able to do the work traditionally done by humans, what will become of the human hand? And how does the drive towards perfection, precision, and automation affect our ability to be creative? In my work as an artist and researcher, I explore AI and robotics to develop new processes for human creativity. For the past few years, I've been creating art alongside machines, data, and emerging technologies. It's part of a lifelong fascination of the dynamics of individuals and systems and all the messiness that that entails. And my interest in working with robotics came from my practice of drawing. Working with robotics and drawing brings back the body into the conversation about art and technology, the mark made by hand and the mark made by machine, and what things like muscle memory and physical instinct can help inform about the creative process, and how they can evolve and expand. It's how I'm exploring questions about where AI ends and we begin, and where I develop processes that investigate potential sensory mixes of the future. It's where philosophy and technology intersect. So doing this work has taught me a few things. It's taught me what embracing imperfection can teach us about ourselves, and more importantly, that the simulation of what happens on screen is not the reality. And what we've been told about technological innovation and things like AI and the algorithm needs to be re-examined and requires a certain level of critical thinking. The work has taught me how art can actually help shape the technology that shapes us. And one reason why I'm so interested in specifically recurrent neural networks is that the feedback loop that transpires between human input and generated input can create something new. It's taught me how combining AI and robotics with traditional forms of creativity, visual arts in my case, allows me to think a little bit more deeply about what is human versus what is the machine. And I see human and machine art as a testing ground for examining human and machine interaction at large, which has broader implications for the relation of technology and society. And it's led to the realization that collaboration is the key to creating the space for both human and machine as we both move forward. And at the end of the talk, I'll share a little bit about my new studio Silhouette, which focuses on human, interhuman, and non-human collaboration. So growing up, my father was an opera singer and my mother was a computer programmer. So I grew up fluent in the languages of music, performance, and code. I grew up with music and computers, and art and code were complementary and not distinctive. For years, I worked with technology as a means to an end. I made room-scale installations by hand, creating these sculptural drawings, and then using projection, I painted on them with light and sound to create a multi-sensory environment for my audience. Technology, to me, was a tool that could make my work and my art, my performance, more perfect and more precise and immersive. But nearly 5 years ago, I wanted to try something different. It all started with an experiment with machines called Drawing Operations Unit Generation 1. I called the machine Doug for short. Before I built Doug, I didn't know much about building robots. I used some open source robotic arm designs and hacked together a system so that the robot would match my gestures using simple color tracking in real time. It would lead, and I would follow. I would draw a line, and it would mimic my line. Along with my collaborator Yotam Man, we designed a system using a frankly crappy webcam on a selfie stick, a simple jitter patch in Max MSP, and a bunch of red electrical tape for my first iteration. So back in 2015, we were drawing together for the first time in public in front of a small audience in New York City. The process was pretty sparse, no lights, no sound, nothing to hide behind, just my palms sweating and the robot's new servos heating up. Clearly, we were not built for this, and I'm not really sure what I was thinking at the time. But something interesting happened, something I didn't anticipate. Doug, the robot, in its primitive form, didn't track perfectly. While the simulation happened on screen was pixel perfect, in physical reality, it was a different story. It would slip and slide and punctuate and falter, and I would be forced to respond. And there's nothing really clean about it, and yet somehow, these mistakes made the work more interesting. The machine was interpreting my line, but not perfectly, and we were adapting to each other in real time. It made my line more fluid, more agile, responding to the unexpected. See, the limits of the supposedly perfect machine made me look at both of us differently. Our imperfections in this space became a source of beauty. And through this strange interaction, I could see that part of the beauty of human and machine interaction was in their inherent shared fallibility. So for the second generation of Doug, rather than an accident caused by pushing a robotic arms to its limit, like in generation 1, I wanted to deliberately create a system that would respond to my drawing in a way I didn't expect. So it was 2015, and the idea of AI was just beginning to take root in the public imagination. One event in particular, was leading the charge. It centered around an ancient Eastern strategy game called Go, or YK, as it's called in Chinese. The top player in the world, heralded as the Mozart of the game, was facing off with AlphaGo, an AI system developed by a company called DeepMind, which was then acquired by Google. In a stunning defeat, Lee Sedol lost the match. He lost the match 5-1. But more than the loss of itself, it's how he described that experience for him that really stuck with me. He said that in his artificial opponent's move, Lee saw in it a unique creativity, a uniquely non-human creativity that Lee deemed impossibly beautiful. And I was really fascinated by this and kind of challenged and disturbed by it all at once. As an artist, I thought beauty and creativity were uniquely human constructs. But was that true? Could a machine make something beautiful and be creative? I knew I had to explore this for myself, and I wanted to experiment with AI systems that could draw alongside me, duet with me in performance, to see what we could learn together. So I used a combination of techniques to extract data from the visual information in decades of my digitized drawings. I trained a model using SketchRNN on this data set to generate recurring predictive patterns in the work, which were then fed through custom software back to the machine. Currently, we're using a combination of synthetic sensing, and we're still trying a variety of techniques in the space of computer vision to track gestures and augmented reality brushes to gather data about the act of drawing. Back then, however, I painstakingly collected over 2 decades of my drawings, finished work, unfinished experiments, freeform sketches, and tagged them for the AI system. And since as an artist I've been drawing for over 2 decades, gathering that many drawings took months. It was a whole thing. And the drawings we're making now are used to feed new types of models with new subjective emotional classifiers. So I'm going to say something in this talk that's often de-emphasized in how we talk about AI, which is that here's the thing about training AI systems. It's actually a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of invisible labor behind the scenes. And in doing the work under the lens of drawing, I was able to explore a little bit more about how an architecture of an AI is constructed. And as an artist, it helped me realize that it's not just made of models and classifiers in a neural network, but it's a system that's fundamentally malleable and shapeable, and one in which the human hand is always present. It surely isn't the omnipotent artificial intelligence we've been told to believe in, which I'll get back to more in a minute. But I collected all these drawings and fed them into the machine learning model to create something that wasn't previously possible. My robot, Doug, was responding to my own drawing in a way that was a real-time interactive reflection of my visual style. See, the data was personal, but the result was powerful. I began to think of machines not only as tools, but as non-human collaborators. And in the end, it made me see that maybe the future in human creativity isn't in what it makes, but how it comes together to explore new ways of making. So, human and machine collaboration is about authorship, agency, and imagination. It's inspired by the perspective of technology, not as a tool, but as a collaborator and potential creative catalyst. It recognizes the influence of both human and machine input in the creative process and the complexities of authorship therein. And it stems from an understanding that the relationship between human and their tools have changed, and that the tools of today are responsive. Think about writing an email, the messaging system that auto-suggests and auto-corrects. We don't even notice it anymore, but these design patterns have become kind of invisible. And that's the system, the design of the system, steering the process of writing. So what you see here is, if you have an iPhone, at least this was maybe a few months ago, if you type in CEO, emoji of a male CEO comes out, which I thought was kind of entertaining. Anyway, I see it as a feedback loop, a combination of agencies between the creator's intent, the designers of the tool and the software, and the constraints of the system, which is the hardware, and a suite of other factors. And this feedback loop of human, tool, and system is fundamentally changing the process of making. The canvas is no longer blank and no longer silent. Modern tools are suggestive, and they nudge you along. And recognizing this complicates authorship and extends beyond creative pursuits to our everyday use of technology. Depending on your perspective, this is either really exciting or really uncomfortable. So human and machine collaboration situates these ideas at the forefront. It recognizes the complexities in the dynamic between the artist and her technological tools. And if we think of machines as collaborators, it begs a certain question. What kind of collaborator do we want? What does it mean to collaborate with a tool which is different from us? And in the sense, collaboration regarding machines as collaborators imbues them with a kind of agency which can be dangerous. For instance, there's a real excitement in culture at the moment about AI art and AI artists. And I think it stems from an interest in understanding what the promises, potentials, and paranoias of AI are and what they could be. The idea of AI creating artwork is a pretty false premise, and I find it strange and uncomfortable. It's become a really popular narrative that normalizes this relinquishing of human agency, make the AI do it. An erasure of human labor. This is sort of like what people want to think about it, and then how rigid the system usually can be. So anyway, back to my work. If Doug 1 was the muscle and Doug 2 was the brain, you could say that Doug 3 was the family. I knew I needed a third generation to explore this idea of human and non-human collaboration at scale. I spent months leading my team to build 20 custom robots that could work as a collective. They would work as a group, and together we would collaborate with all of New York City. I was really inspired by Stanford researcher Fei-Fei Li, who said, if we want to teach machines how to think, we need to first teach them how to see. Which made me think of the past decade of my life in New York and the multiple surveillance cameras that I've been all watched over by in the city, and how they could be used as the eyes through which I could teach my robots to see. So throughout all of my experiments with Doug, no two performances have ever been the same. Through collaboration, we created something neither of us could have made alone. We explore the boundaries of human and non-human creativity, human and non-human working in parallel. So I get asked this sometimes, which is, what are the ethical boundaries that exist in the world of human-machine art? Are there any lines that shouldn't be crossed? So I see human machine art as a testing ground for examining human and machine interaction at large, which has broader implications for the relation of technology and society. And through the projects, I work through issues of authorship, agency, and control, and what it means to collaborate with the things that you build, and what relationships are built on the process of co-creation. I think about hidden narratives that are prevalent behind the hype of AI art, and people that want something greater than themselves to believe in. And in some ways, art throughout history has had this relationship of creating sensory experiences for that kind of power, like the power of AI, right? Is that dangerous? Is that the tradition of art? I wonder if it has to be, and I find these questions really interesting about pursuing this space. That being said, the artificial intelligence tends to look over any human element. In my drawings, the models I train require large sets of data to be effective. In my case, that data is decades of my drawings. But is it uncomfortable to look at one's artwork only as data? Does the digitization of the work capture the essence of the work, or is it just a representation? What is lost in adapting to be machine readable, of thinking about individual output as data? The philosophical nature of these questions really continue to inspire and refine my approach. So really, I think this is just the beginning. This year I've launched Silicet, a new lab exploring collaboration between individual, artificial, and environmental systems by connecting human and machine input to biometrics and other kinds of ecological data. We're inviting anyone interested in the future of work, systems, and interhuman collaboration to explore with us. We know it's not just technologists that have to do this work, that we all have a role to play. So Silicet is a space where anyone can feel welcome to explore these ideas with artists, scientists, designers, and writers who recognize that the widening conversation and the widening of this conversation is essential to examining and exploring these ideas with the breadth it deserves. In the immediate term, we're interested in meeting like-minded collaborators to build a space that nurtures new ideas around collaboration and making with. Through this, I'm sort of experimenting with how the traditional art studio environment can be a locus for community, discussion, and critical thought. How can human and non-human collaboration expand our thinking about cooperation itself and what it means to create collectively? We believe that by teaching machines how to do the work traditionally done by humans, we can evolve our criteria of what's made possible by the human hand. And part of that journey comes from embracing the imperfections and recognizing the fallibility of both human and machine in order to expand the potential of both. Today, I'm still in pursuit of finding beauty in human and non-human creativity. And in the future, I have no idea what that'll look like, but I'm pretty curious to find out. Thank you.